this lovely Tuesday finds you well, and welcome back to another version, another edition of Transmission Tuesdays, where we talk about anything really that comes up in the sort of healing realm, or the path to healing that needs to be discussed with a little bit more depth. I don't know if you guys can hear the cannon, but the city where I live in has a cannon that goes off every day at noon, so I don't know if you can hear that when we're live here, but anyway, it just went off. But today I wanted to talk about ancestral karma and ancestral trauma, which aren't actually the same things. They're pretty different things, and as well as a healing spell that I invoked recently and have really found to be really helpful to helping these sort of patterns shift and these familial kind of hang-ups that we have that are really, really hard to break. And it's December 1st, happy December, and that means that the holidays, whether it's Christmas, which I know is kind of socially the big one, or it's Hanukkah, or it's any sort of situation where you're around family, even if it's on Zoom, I feel that those sort of hang-ups and those sort of kind of tough moments are heightened around this time of year. And, you know, because energy is always present, when the whole world's kind of experiencing like a heightened series of emotions, you can really feel that out there. You can feel that out there in the world. So that's what we're going to be chatting about today. And I wanted to start with like, what do we mean, or what do I mean when I'm talking about ancestral anything, ancestral karma or trauma? And what I mean by that is, do you have any blocks in your life, or do you have any moments that you feel are constantly repetitive, and no matter how much law of attraction manifestation you do, or how much journaling you do, or how much whatever steps you feel like you're taking to get there to heal it, it just kind of always comes back around? Like, you have this issue with housing that always seems to come up. You can never really seem to find a place that you really love, or you always have an issue in relationships, or these things that are present in our lives that are actually deeper than just us. You know, they carry out to the attachments and the truths that have existed from our ancestors and our grandparents and our great-grandparents, and further along in our lineage and in our bloodlines. And for Westerners, we don't have as much of a connection to our ancestors as the indigenous populations do, where they really have a strong understanding of what their ancestors were doing and were really connected to. So part of this is about discovering that and discovering your lineage. But when I talk about ancestral karma, we'll go there first. When I talk about karma in general, that is a universal system of cause and effect that's carried through lifetimes, whether it's many past lives that you've carried through, or whether it's just resulting in the one that you've lived so far. Karma means that the actions that you take that are kind of in alignment with the sort of highest good are measured on a cause and effect system. And if your ancestors, for example, have committed actions or acted in a way that weren't helpful, and that weren't helpful, but like that were damaging in some way, then it's possible for that to carry through to you in the present day. So for example, this comes up in, like I said earlier, if you have struggles or blocks with no sort of root cause, like perhaps your great-grandfather had a dispute with someone over land and he handled it dishonestly. the way that that energy is going to be carried forward. I'm just going to turn this light off because it's distracting me. The way that energy can be carried forward is that perhaps it was never resolved with him back in the day, and you now have this embodiment of never really being able to find a home that feels right. And that energy and that karma has been carried forward into your lifetime, and you're kind of dealing with the attachments and the tangled ropes from your ancestors beforehand. Now, when we talk about trauma, ancestral trauma, that's a very different thing. It's not so much about situations or circumstances. It's a lot more about patterning and the experience in the body and the experience in the mind. Like, trauma can carry through in belief systems, in your bodily experience, in your perception of the world. And some examples of that, even just from your parents, like from one generation out, are things like, you know, life's a grind. Life's really hard. You got to work hard to be able to get to where you want to go, or, you know, money doesn't grow on trees, or addictions and unstable relationships, you know, relationships with alcohol or relationships with anything that aren't healthy and balanced. Those are all things that can be traumas that are carried forward in the body and carried forward into the present day. And a really strong example of this is in Indigenous and BIPOC communities, like that heavy trauma and intensity and pain and rage and all these really, really intense things that happened however many years out and rippled, you know, happened to this generation and this generation and this generation. Those traumas are carried through in the body and in the belief systems and in the mind and in the heart to the present day. So it can make it really tricky to manage certain things when you realize that it might not be just you that you're working with. You are working with the bigger systems and the bigger ripple effect outward. Now, that being said, the beautiful thing about healing is that it is a ripple effect in itself. And anybody who's watching this who has undertaken some sort of path of healing may have already noticed that, you know, when they heal a major aspect of themselves or they heal a major block within their lives, all of a sudden it does ripple and it reflects outwards. And maybe this conversation that you had with one parent that always went in the same direction, maybe you got to a new avenue with that, or maybe the relationship with your sister changed, or anything that has to do with your own healing. When you work on yourself, it will heal outwards and it will ripple effect to your other family members, to your future family members, and to the people that surround you in your life. So, yeah, so let's get to this spell. So I wrote this spell a little while ago, and I hadn't actually put it into place yet, and the other day was the first time that I had put it into practice, and I am noticing quite a deep shift in relational lineage type stuff. So I do recommend it. I am going to talk about, or I'm going to mention the words like casting a circle. And if you've never casted a circle before, or you don't know what that means, then I'll attach a link to the comments in this video. And if you're on YouTube, I'll attach a link in the description box that explains how to cast a circle and what that means, because it's really, really important, but it's a thing in and of itself, and we're not going to get into it today. So what this spell will allow you to do is primarily to connect to the ancestors that are most closely aligned with you and also might be obstructing your path in the most significant way. So the way that I view lineages are kind of like we're connected by this long sort of artery of life, and there are blockages along the way, and some of those are from experience or from mistakes made in the past, and they've been brought forwards. So this spell will allow you to connect to them, and then it will allow you to clear the way to help you move forwards with less baggage and less attachment. So the first step to doing this spell and to getting this spell in action is that you need to know where you came from. So if you don't know a lot about your lineage in general, like if you can't go at least 3 generations back, like your grandparents and then their parents and then their parents, at least 3 generations back from above your parents, then do what you can, connect to the people that might know, and see if you can find out a little bit about their story. Because it's when we're dealing with spirit and when we're dealing with history, it's a lot easier to connect if we've got some sort of roadmap or kind of visual path that will help us draw a line backwards. So where are they from? You know, what was their journey like to, if they immigrated to where you live now, or if they came from a certain area, you know, how many people were in their family? Were there any major stories or major things that they had issue with? Was there a suicide, or was there a genocide, or was there any sort of big thing that connected in their lives that might be explaining or might be cause to explain some of the things that are being carried through for you now? So the first one is learn your lineage, and then the next step is to take some time, like some real time, go somewhere quiet or go into your room and connect with yourself and reflect on what types of past hurts have been carried down to you. You know, it's helpful to think about what blockages you have, but also what blockages do you see in your parents, and what do you really wish you could help them heal with? And where can you see that having come from? You know, did that come from their father's side? Did that come from their mother's side? Start drawing the lines of where are these hurts and these sort of painful points coming from. So give yourself some time to do that. Write it down or draw a map or do whatever you want to help you kind of make that concrete. And then once you've spent some time reflecting on that, then the next step is to write a letter. And you have to kind of feel ready to do this and to feel ready to forgive and to move into a place of forgiveness from the circumstances that have happened to you or your family, and to be able to prepare yourself to release these energies and these attachments. So what I did was individually for each family member, so either like each grandparent or each great-grandparent, write a letter of forgiveness and let them go. Release them from the karmic debt that they've brought forwards into your life, and forgive them for the mistakes they made or the hurts that they caused your grandparents or your parents, and really, act as if you can really talk to them face to face and forgive them for the energies that they've carried through, because these aspects have awoken you to a certain level of healing and have made you, in part, the person that you are today. So one by one, they don't have to be long letters, but write a true letter of forgiveness to each member of your family that you wish to clear that line of lineage with. And then the next part comes to casting a circle and kind of putting the spell into place. I like to mostly, when I do a spell or a release of some sort, I like to do this outside. And for this spell in particular, it's helpful to be outside. We're lucky and the ground's not frozen yet, so if you want to do this sometime soon, it's definitely a great idea. But you're going to take your letters and you're going to go out into the woods or your yard or somewhere quiet with nature and spend time truly connecting to your breath, connecting to your ancestors, and cast that circle and then call down your ancestors and ask them to be with you and ask them to connect with you. And if you have practice doing this, or you ever connect with angels or your guides, then ask for all of the help that you can get and all of the assistance that you can get in bringing that ancestral connection down to you. And then once you really kind of feel like they're with you, or you're not alone anymore, then take each letter one by one and offer that individual forgiveness and claim as fact their release from your lineage in terms of blockages. Claim the release of the mistakes they've made or the hurts they've caused. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bury that letter, dig a small hole in the ground and bury that letter and put it to rest, and either put like a rock or a leaf or something symbolic that kind of makes it a little bit like a marker, and bury it like it has been put into a grave, and it's been returned to the earth, so that it's no longer in your energy, it's no longer in your family's energy, but it's been laid to rest and it's been put back to where it came from. And depending on how many letters you have written, you're going to do this with every single letter. You're going to take it out, you're going to connect with it, you're going to claim release from the energies that it brought you, and you're going to forgive them, and you're going to bury it in the ground. I think I put leaves on top of mine. So at the end, it looks like a little family graveyard. But what you've done is you've just removed that energy, and you've removed that karma from you and from your field, and you've returned it to the earth from where it belongs and where it can become productive energy again. So once you have buried all of the letters, then you're going to take the steps to close your circle. So thanking either the guides or the angels or the ancestors that have been with you throughout your process. You know, if you called in directions for your circle, then releasing those directions or releasing any sort of assistance that you called in at that time. If you're someone who likes to make a physical circle when they're casting, then make sure you break it. And if you used any sort of like a stick or anything like that to help yourself bury the letters, then make sure you break that, because it's a conduit of energy. Make sure you break it and release it back to the earth. And I bet you'll feel a bit lighter after completing that. So I really found that this was a super helpful release spell, a super helpful technique to help me move forwards with some of my ancestral lineage, because we all have very potent backstories, and some of them are heavy and really dark, and we have enough to deal with out in the world right now, and there's enough going on with shifts that the more we can do to lighten our packs moving forward, the easier it's going to be as we continue to transition and continue to shift. So I hope this was helpful. Again, if you're watching the replay of this, feel free to comment any type of topic that you would like to see next week. Same time, same place, Tuesdays at 12. And I will leave a comment below of how to cast a circle if you've never done that before. And feel free to reach out if you want the written version of this spell as well. And for now, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Peace and love.